Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope everybody is doing all right today. And it isn't such a great day, and I'm just gonna stay inside and try to stay warm and dry. And if that's at all possible with the dampness that I feel in here. So I hope that you have so far been enjoying my series on missing kids. And I just want to let people know who are tuning in for the first time. I launched this series in anticipation of some positive developments coming out of the old Maddie McCann disappearance, which still to this day remains unsolved, and the headlines that were racing across many papers and news stations across the world about Julia Wendell and her possible link to either the McCanns or some other missing kid family. And so I'm still anticipating some news to arise out of that, out of those two cases in one way or another. And it's unfortunate that they have dragged on for so long, but without evidence, there is really actually very little police can do. They can't conjure evidence that isn't there. And so, with the Melvin Howe case that I discussed last night, and the Calvin Hoover case that I discussed regarding the disappearance and eventual discovery of Christine Jessup. Police do wonderful jobs with evidence, but if there's no evidence there, or if it's evidence that cannot be linked to any particular database, there's virtually nothing anybody can really do. If you really regard the poor innocent man who was arrested, Paul Moran, for Christine Jessup and what happened to her, you'll know that we can't have all these false arrests just as a way to commemorate a murder. You know what I mean? Just to try to validate the justification with a wrong arrest. It doesn't work that way. And so thank goodness science has made some pretty remarkable strides to try to avoid that crazy mistake of, assuming the worst and then trying to follow through on hunches. That can't ever work. A person can be so suspicious and so weird looking and behaving and you confess, but unless you have evidence, you should treat every confession as suspect, unless you can actually link the evidence to the actual suspect. So I think that's the only way the justice system can and should proceed with cases like this, which pretty much describes almost all cases that go unsolved. You can't simply arrest a wrong person and expect everything to be hunky-dory. It doesn't work that way. Meanwhile, other murders could be committed all over the world by the same person, and you wouldn't care or know. You know what I mean? It's important to try to avoid that. And so tonight we are going to be discussing a new case. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be discussing a boy or a girl. There are more cases that have evolved from my own city, a little bit newer, not so much vintage, but maybe a 20-year-old case at least. And so I'm not sure exactly which one I'm going to cover tonight, but stay tuned because I just discovered these cases last night, so bear with me. And we will eventually get to the American cases if time allows, because I do need to start working on my home project situation. At least going out to look, maybe not so much actually breaking down any walls yet, but yes, I need to start looking, if not for anything, for someone else to do it, because I don't anticipate me doing a very good job. This is such an old kitchen wall. So anyway, that's what's on the agenda for later on. And so, if you can see, I have no makeup on. I'm using an old camera, so I look maybe a little washed out. I'm sorry for that. It's a very horrible day out there, and so that's what's causing the light to be really, weird. And so I do have to make my soup, and I think I'm going to try to make the eggplant sandwiches. I'm going to mash some potatoes and put them in the oven to roast with the eggplant, and we'll see how that turns out. I'm also going to be making some of the soup as well. And so if you stick around, you can watch me make that if you're interested. And so as some of you may already know, I am following the starch solution. And wouldn't you guess, almost immediately after I began following it, like maybe a week now, my eye began to give me another problem. But I know that the inside temperature of my car yesterday was outrageously high. My device shut down because of due to extreme and severe heat. And that's the message it was giving me. So imagine what it's going to do to a human face. It'll cook it. I really do think that the public health department should do something about the manufacturing of these vehicles that are unsafe for human skin. Human skin. That's what I have on my face. I cannot withstand the damage that it causes to my skin. I can't simply end up in the hospital because I went for a drive. I'm going to have third-degree burns if I'm not extremely careful. And I grew up in the tropics, so that definitely is double exposure. And so I don't know what else to do to convince people that yes, driving in a heated car for more than an hour with untinted glass will lead to double exposure. And so these manufacturers need to step on that and stand up to any institution that tries to dictate otherwise. There needs to be a safe way to work around the issues that may be surrounding these policies. You know what I mean? And one more word on my subscribers. I absolutely love and enjoy all the comments. And yes, it took me until 4 p.m. today, beginning at around 10 p.m., 11 p.m., a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m. To get through all the comments, I usually go through my subscriber list first and go to their channels and then go through my comments and do it all over again. So for those of you who are not yet subscribed, no, it's not essential that you subscribe, but it makes life so much easier for me. Less time to comment. When you're subscribed to my channel, I can get to you much quicker. I can get to you on a regular basis. But if I don't know who you are, I really don't want to take time out in the middle of my afternoon or evening to start finding all these random channels, which are lovely. I have to admit, I love your channels and I want to go there, but they're all over the place now. I love those meditation channels. I love the daily vlogs. I love the gardening and cooking channels. I love the artistic channels. I love the traveling vlogs. I love all of it. The walking tours. Yeah, that's exactly what I like to do in life. But if I don't know who you are, it's going to take me a little longer to get to your channel and figure out, do I want to subscribe? Is this the kind of channel I want to follow right now? All kinds of stuff like that. Because if you're one of those people who subscribed to my channel and kept deleting my comments from your channels, you're going to find out by now that you've been blocked, because I'm not putting up with that. I don't want to play games, peekaboo on YouTube. I'm not doing that. I think that, we're all adults, and if we can't mutually respect one another for the hard work and encourage each other by keeping those comments, and, maybe in one or two situations, I know I might have been distracted and popped away too immediately. And maybe I got spammed. So I'm sorry for that. But I let I let them run all day long as I watch, as I cook, as I do housework. So nobody can really say, well, you didn't watch my videos, so I spammed you, or you got spammed. I know that that's what YouTube does, especially in YouTube Studio. So that's why YouTube does suggest that you always respond from YouTube Studio. But in my situation, I know that I absolutely watch from beginning to end. And I think maybe I didn't do that all the time. Now I realize this is the better way to go, because you never know what you can miss, right? So anyway, guys, I hope that you will continue to tune in and comment. And I just love reading the comments. I do. And yes, they're very tragic cases. And I really don't want to dwell on the monsters that were made when they were children and continue to lash out at innocent children. I don't think it's going to be constructive to react in a very angry way. Of course, I don't condone what was done to these children, but I also want to try to investigate how we can better avoid creating monsters. Certainly what we've been doing so far doesn't help. And so, if any of you have been watching the headlines, Aiden Fucci was just sentenced to life for the murder of Tristan Bailey, a case that I am very seriously considering going over, simply because it's been said that it doesn't follow the typical patterns of an abused killer. I don't know. I think it does. But, I think it also depends on age of a person and what that person endured in order to get to the point that they got. And, carried out their rage in public, on social media, and threats, and yes, murder. So I think Aiden Fucci is at an age where he can teach us, because he understands. He understands. We don't understand. If he keeps it to himself, we may never understand. We may never be given a chance to understand what drove him to it. He may be cool and hip and say, oh, nothing drove me to it. No, that can't be, because I don't believe in random crimes. Um, that to me is absolutely senseless. There's no such concept. So get out of people's minds that crimes are committed for no reason. Yes, they're committed for no reason when you don't understand the reasons. But the reasons, if you actually look hard enough, are always there. And so, guys, I'm still in the middle of getting back to you all, but I think I will try to begin my soup at first, and then I will continue with the eggplant sandwiches for later on. It's still only about 4 p.m., so I have time, and I'm not at all hungry, so I have the whole afternoon to work on it, and I don't have anywhere to go, so. Anyway, guys, I will let you watch what I do, and I'll catch up with you later on. Bye. Hi, guys. So I'm ready to start on our short story today. It shouldn't take very long. It's about 10-year-old little Holly Maria Jones, who went missing in May of 23. And I am astounded that I've only discovered this case yesterday. And so I believe that it occurred during the year of the pandemic of SARS. And I remember that I have been abroad most of the year, that year. And I returned home in April with my mother, but returned back in July. And so during that period, that short period that I was here at home, this is when it occurred. And so little Holly Maria Jones was born into a loving home on September the 14th, 1992, to Maria Jones and George Stonehouse. And so she was the youngest of four siblings, and her older siblings, Shauna, Natasha, and James, lavished her with affection and doted on her. Holly attended St. Luigi Catholic Elementary School in the Junction Triangle neighborhood, and it was a neighborhood in my city, downtown. And so Holly was a very lively, very gentle, and energetic little girl with a very big imagination and wonderful dreams. And she aspired to be a singer because she loved music. And she also excelled in academically in school, was well liked, and she was exceptional athletically in basketball and cross country. And so let's get to the story. May the 12th, 2003, when Holly had volunteered who walked her friend Claudia home from a play date at her house at 6 p.m. It was still daylight, and it had been a play date, and so it would have been quite light at 6 p.m., and I believe at a daylight savings, which had by then begun, it would have been dark by 7:30, 8 o'clock. So Holly did return. I believe it's something that Claudia herself confirmed. And so Claudia only lived a very few short blocks away from Holly, and so they walked along Sterling Street, the same route that Holly took to school. And so that's what makes me believe that this person had been tracking them both, not just Holly, but Claudia as well. And so along the route between the school and Claudia's home and Holly's house was Michael Briere's apartment. Darkness fell eventually, but Holly still hadn't returned. And so now we have to understand and remember that Holly was just a little girl. She was shy. She was trying to become more responsible and gain some more independence because she knew she was getting older and approaching her teenage years, and she was anxious to show maturity to her parents. And also, all of her siblings were older as well, so they were providing her with examples of how to behave and how to demonstrate responsibility and maturity. And so her parents, Maria Jones and George Stonehouse, began to grow concerned, and I'm very sure that they probably called Claudia, and Claudia probably said, yes, she took me home, and she made her way back. I saw her turn around and go back. I'm sure that they checked other places as well. And so just a few hours after her disappearance, they'd probably be pushing around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, they promptly reported her missing. And so I'm not sure why the Amber Alert was not issued until the next morning, but they did report her missing. And so what happened was a large-scale police search was begun, and the parents requested the safe return of Holly and information about her whereabouts. And so the neighborhood after that was on high alert after her disappearance and subsequent discovery and death. So with increasing reports of other attempted abductions. So people lived in fear for their children's lives, and schools were forced to implement stronger security measures. The police appealed for help in identifying two men seen aboard the Toronto Island ferry around the time that Holly's remains were found, and police were there at the time. So one man did come forward and was immediately cleared as a suspect. I believe that he contributed his DNA, but the other remained unidentified. But eventually we would come to learn that the proper suspect had been found, and so that one didn't matter as much. And so Holly's remains were discovered in two duffel bags, only some of the remains, on the shores of the Toronto Island on May the 13th, 2003. And on Ward's Island, very close by, a man walked his dog and came across those two bags on the shoreline that contained body parts. And so the remains were presently identified as Holly Jones. As the investigation continued, police divers that day searched the waterfront for evidence, and they released posters of two more bags and dumbbells recovered from inside the lake, and asked the public for any information about Holly's disappearance and murder. And so the hotline received almost 17,000 phone calls and tips from other possible leads, I believe, of other abductions. And they really had no bearing on Holly's case. On May the 20th, Holly was laid to rest at St. Vincent de Paul Roman Catholic Church with hundreds of mourners, schoolmates, teachers, relatives, friends, including police and politicians, showing support for the Joneses family, for the Joneses. But still, attempted abductions did increase due to the criminals' mysterious whereabouts. The area surrounding Jones's neighborhood did see more attempted child abductions in the weeks following the murder, and it heightened the police presence in that area. For instance, on June the 2nd, a man led a small boy out of a grocery store in Holly's neighborhood, but ran off when the boy's mother began to scream. And guys, this is exactly what I mean about the city and the dangers of this particular city. It is very rare that I can go to any grocery store and not have to watch over my shoulder, that somebody will immediately be waiting from when I get in to when I get out and try to follow me into the direction in which I have to go. Sometimes it's unbelievable. It can last for hours sometimes until I call police. They need to do something about those grocery parking lots, which are like a booby trap. It's like a virtual prison cell. And I am not kidding you. And so during a wide-scale request for samples from men in the area where Holly disappeared, a few men did refuse to participate. And so I guess it couldn't be enforced. But one of them was the 35-year-old software developer, Michaelbriere. Briere was initially suspected by refusing, and so they surveilled him and illegally obtained a DNA sample from a discarded soda can in a public trash bin. And so, like Rafferty, Briere had no criminal record. And so after that can was retrieved, from then on, carpet fibers from the green carpet of Briere's apartment were matched to Holly's fibers on her clothing, and Michael's DNA, Briere's DNA matched the blood found under Holly's fingernails, and that prompted police to arrest him. Briere was arrested and charged with Holly's murder on June the 20th, 2003. However, this case really does take a turn for the unusual, being that during the interrogation that promptly ensued, Briere did confess to murdering Holly. They didn't actually need his confession because the DNA was the same. And so this is what I'm saying, guys. If the DNA didn't match, his confession would have been hogwash. But he explained that after viewing certain pictures and films, he happened to walk outside just as Holly passed in front of his apartment. And he made a decision right then and there, it's crap, that he ultimately ended her life. And so he abused and strangled her, and within an hour of taking her hostage, she was dead. She was gone, guys. He hid her in the refrigerator and took her apart. So over the course of 3 more days, he did dispose of her, partially by dumping bags into the harbor and on the shore. The rest, where? The trash. Yes, the trash. So Briere was charged with first-degree murder and held without bail in protective custody. Holly's family was relieved to hear that her killer had been caught, but of course they couldn't have felt much better. Michael did waive rights to a preliminary hearing and pled guilty on June the 17th, 24. And so he admitted he wanted to spare the Joneses from a painful trial. And so, guys, he sure had a funny way of showing it. Usually you feel remorse and pain before you commit a crime. If you're a good person, even if you have these thoughts, if you're a strong person, you feel that remorse before. And so he was sentenced to life and will not be eligible for parole until 2028. So he pled guilty, and in doing so, he described himself as a cruel, inhuman, and nightmarish person, stating that he wished to spare the family pain. And well, I can think of a few more pronouns to add to that little list of his. And again, if he wanted to spare the family, or any family for that matter, pain, he had a very, very, very strange way of showing it. And so, guys, in honor of Holly, her parents dedicated 2 memorial parks for her in her neighborhood, and the family maintained a home garden right there at home in her memory. And although nothing will bring back Holly, Holly's mother and her husband do strive for change, positive change, by proposing Holly's Law, which seeks to provide education and tools to children that will help them identify and deal with abuse and abusers in hopes of ending it once and for all. Well, that is a very necessary tool. However, it is not really up to children to stop the criminals. It is up to the offenders to go for help before it gets out of hand, before inflicting all that pain. And guys, let's face it, if a criminal waits until after a crime is committed, whether he can help it or not, he or she can help it or not, it's almost virtually impossible to get help after that, because then you will ultimately go to jail. The person will go to jail. And so this is why, rehabilitation it's not working the way it could. At least not in these cases, it didn't. And so I'm going to end it here. Let's call it a night, and I'm going to end the vlog here because it's been pretty depressing. And I hope that some of you have found this interesting. And it's a case that I just popped up online, and I didn't know that it even existed. And so I hope that you've, managed to get something out of this. I'm glad that he turned himself in once he was caught. I'm glad that he admitted it, because I think it was a good way to go. He would have spared himself a lot of pain too. You know what I'm saying? Look at what happened to Calvin Hoover. He hung himself. And so, I think there's still potential for good in people that repent and feel remorse. Um, I think it's entirely up to the person themselves, himself or herself, as to how to um, manifest that goodness. But I think it's possible. I think it depends on the person. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for watching me make my potato sandwiches, which are so delicious. The soup. And thank you for listening to this case. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye for now.